Hi friends, today I'm going to talk about open source software. Traditionally, as a software company, I need to do an evaluation before I start any product development. There are two things that I see. One is an open source software and one more is a proprietary software sold by somebody. So I evaluate with respect to various parameters which are going to be seen in the next few slides. But however, I see these two options. One is open source, second is a paid software. So let us see how an open source is utilized. So in the case of open source software, developers can view the source code, they can modify the source code and distribute the source code freely to other developers, or they can use it in their product, etc. There is transparency. If it were a proprietary software and I have purchased it, I cannot be transparent. The companies won't be transparent with me because they are selling it for a price. They have a USP of this product and they will not be selling this product to me. So there will be no transparency. So in the case of open source, I will have collaboration opportunities with the community. I can customize the software depending upon the use case that I want to develop. And the open source may be available at a cheaper rate or no cost, but there could be some charges for design, for the support and implementation. For support, I might get the community of developers who will be contributing to the source code development from time to time, and the help may be available on forums, on documentations, and user groups are also going to be created for that particular software. So I will be completely relying on the community of developers, and I may be able to pay them also with respect to the donations. They will not be having a bank account or something, but we need to pay them for their services using donate option. So open source is primarily used because it gives us flexibility to implement our unique ideas, and the updates and maintenance will depend upon the community users, their level of expertise, involvement, and the frequency with which they do updates. So whenever we use the open source software, we may want to attribute to the community for the software. It is a good practice and a common practice. And security of the security of the software will largely depend upon the competency, the skill, etc. of the community. So these are the few points that we need to keep in mind. Open source projects offer us different kinds of licenses. One is general public license. Second is Massachusetts Institute of Technology license, commonly known as MIT license. And the third one is Apache, to define the terms under which the source code can be used. So typically when we use the software such as the open source, we have to see the limitations, we have to see the compliance, we have to see the terms and conditions which are defined in these three different types of licenses. So when do we use this open source software, or when do we, compare with a paid software? When as entrepreneurs we have tight budgets, we are a startup company and we don't know what to do with technology, how to use it. That is the time when I use the open source. I might be a small business and I cannot invest much, so that is one of the scenarios. And there are cases where I have to implement some specialized functions which are not available in the proprietary tools in the market. That is when I go ahead with open source software. It can be a source for me to learn something. I want to experiment with the code. That is when I am going to use the open source software. I may want to debug the software. I want to change something and test it for myself. Then I want to test my ideas. So that is when I can. That is when I want to use the open source software. and I don't want the source code to be dependent on any software developer. So this is a typical advantage of using any open source. There are a few examples of open source that I want to highlight. Linux as one of the operating systems. So if you compare a paid software with all these list of examples, you can find relevant open source as well, because there are community of people who have developed, contributed to the development of all these technologies. So Linux as operating system, WordPress for developing websites, and you have today few no code platforms that aren't offered free, but they give you a lot of flexibility to develop the software quickly. And there are Apache HTTP servers acting as a web server, and then you have JavaScript for web development, especially the front ends. You have MySQL as database, Git for version control, Docker for containers, Mozilla Firefox as a browser, Python for programming, and OpenSSL for security. So, folks, I thought of describing this open source for you to understand the basics of open source technologies and how you may want to use them for your requirements. Thank you so much.